Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm really excited today to be doing a review, first impressions, and try on of the new Jaclyn Hill Cosmetics collection. So this is the Complexion collection that is the newest launch from Jaclyn Cosmetics. I just got this in the mail and I do tend to film these videos quickly to get my thoughts and first impressions out for you guys. I know a lot of you have been tagging me like, we need a review, so I was just waiting for it to show up. So today I'm going to be doing swatches, demo, and just applying the products, see what I think about them, and giving you my first impression. Now, of course, moving forward, I will continue to use the products and then follow up and give you my full review. But today we're just going to get a closer look at the products, apply them, and see what I think initially and how they apply, and if I think they're worth the money. So I'll leave all the information down below that I do know about this launch. If you're new here, I hope you'll subscribe. And if you enjoy these first impressions videos on new collections, please give this video a thumbs up. And without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. Okay, so as I said, we're going to be talking about the newest collection from Jaclyn Cosmetics. This is called the Complexion collection. In this collection, there are two products, but there are numerous shades in each product. Starting out with the Skin Perfecting Blurring Tint. This is going to retail for $34. Comes in 12 different shades. A blurring sheer coverage skin tint doing double duty as a blurring primer and a tinted moisturizer. Comfy, real skin, perfection is only one pump away. Now, in terms of the packaging, it comes in a plastic component. It does have this sort of frosted effect to it. It does also have a pump, and I believe she said this was an airless pump, meaning that you're gonna get every last drop of product out of here. It is very lightweight, but I also think the product is lightweight as well. Now, she did send over 3 shades for me to try, so I am going to throw some swatches up. I think I'm probably gonna end up going with the shade Light, which is the deepest shade she sent me, but she also said that she can use a ton of different shades just depending on her self-tan, or even if she is tan, she can use a lighter shade and vice versa. This is not supposed to have coverage. It is very sheer, but it's supposed to give you that blurred effect and give you a glow. So we will see, because every time something says blur and glow in the same sentence, I'm like, what? Anything that has a glow seems to not blur. But we will definitely try this out and see what kind of, I guess, evening out we can get, just because I do have redness and texture and pores. So I really want to put this to the test and see if it actually does blur the skin and give enough of an evening out effect that's not going to make me look blotchy. Now, along with the tint, she is releasing the Faux Filler Perfecting Concealer in 35 shades, retailing for $26. This is a buildable medium to full coverage concealer that visibly brightens, blurs, and flexes with skin for a flawless finish all day long. So this is what the packaging looks like. It's very typical for a concealer. It's basically the same sort of packaging as the tint, except for this does not have that frosted effect. It does have a doe foot applicator, and she did send over 6 different shades. So I think looking at the shades, I'm not really sure which way I'm going to go until I do put on the blurring tint. I really want to see how this blends out on the skin, just because I do have a self tan on, and this may be a little bit light. So we'll have to play around and see what works for me. Now, in terms of size, you do get 1 ounce in the blurring skin tint, which is pretty typical. This is made in Korea, and the concealer you get 0.23 ounces, and this is made in the USA. This collection will be available on the Jaclyn Cosmetics website January 11th, and then I do know it is coming to Ulta and Morphe at a later date. So all the information I can find out, I will have down below in my description box. So now that we've gone over the products, there really wasn't much to go over. Let's go ahead and zoom in and start applying. All right, so I've got you zoomed in. We're gonna start off with the blur tint. So I'm gonna be using the shade Light, which is the deepest shade she sent to me, just because I do self-tan. I'm hoping that this will work and blend in. Now, again, she said you could use this alone or as a primer, so we'll kind of see what kind of coverage it offers. I know she said there's no coverage. It does even out and blur the skin and lock in moisture. but I'm wondering if it's going to be enough for me to feel comfortable, just because I don't have only certain areas that need to be covered. I have like general redness. So I'm gonna go ahead and apply this with my fingers, which is how Jaclyn demoed it. She did say you could use a sponge, you could really do whatever you want. So I'm gonna start out with, let's say 2 pumps here, and we're just gonna start on one side of the face. Okay, so it's definitely way lighter than my self tan. But we're just gonna work it in. Ooh, okay, it's really, really light for my self tan. So I don't necessarily think I'm gonna be able to wear this alone. Only because the shade is just way too light. Now, she did say these shades are forgiving and you can switch them up, which I totally get, but just because my chest is so much deeper, I don't really know how that's gonna work. Okay, so I've zoomed you in the most I can possibly zoom in. So it is an interesting product because it does seem to sort of even the skin out, even though it doesn't really have coverage, and it doesn't feel super tacky. It almost feels just a little bit tacky, like you could powder it if you want to, but it's not a very heavy, sticky, skincare-like feeling product. It doesn't feel overly greasy or thick. It almost feels quite whipped. In terms of blurring, I mean, I see a little bit of blurring on my pore area as opposed to this side. I think the thing that's throwing me off is the shade, just because I don't know how I'm gonna make this work because I do have self-tan on. This would work for me, this light shade would work for me when I don't have a self-tan. So I'm going to have to possibly add something on top of this just because I really don't know how I would make this work. So I'm gonna go ahead and apply to the other side and see what we're thinking in terms of application on both sides. Before I apply to the other side, I definitely can see that this side of my face looks a little bit more evened out, just looks a little bit softer. I'm not noticing my pores or just even like redness from breakouts as much on this side. I just think I probably would need maybe like the medium shade just to be able to, you know, match the color I am right now. So I'm gonna go ahead and apply, I do about 1.5 pumps on each side just because, you know, your girl's got a lot going on. I don't know if I would recommend using a sponge with this, just because I feel like it might take away any of the, I guess, blurring properties or the evening of the skin tone. So this is what we're looking like with the blurring tint. You can see that it just evened out my skin tone. It really just sort of calmed down the redness, any acne scarring. It doesn't have like crazy coverage, but it did just sort of take the edge off. I like to say that. Where if you're someone that just wants to throw something on because you feel a little self-conscious, you know, about hyperpigmentation, rosacea, acne scars, this would be something that you could easily use your fingers and be out the door. Or you could also just use this and then put some powder on top to add a little bit more coverage. That's what I was planning to do today, but because this shade is so light, there's just absolutely no way that I can do that without looking wild for this review. But I did want to show you what this looks like alone. I do feel like if I were to add concealer and then use some powder that had a little bit of coverage, let's say like MAC Studio Fix powder or something like that, I think that this would be fine alone, especially for those days when you just want your skin to look a little bit more polished, a little bit more even, but you don't want to go through the hassle of a foundation. So I actually think this is an interesting product. I'm liking it so far because it's not super heavy. It definitely does feel, you know, tacky because it is a liquid, but it's not goopy or heavy. It's not seeming to transfer a lot, meaning that, you know, when I blend something on top of it, it doesn't feel like it's going to be coming off. Like when I was using my fingers to blend, the only area I had a little bit of issue with was my nose, which is typical. Basically anything, even foundations with a lot of coverage, don't want to stick to my nose. It's just one of those things. I'm sure you guys can relate. I'm going to go in with the Beauty Blender Bounce Skin Tint just because I really need to add a little bit of color just to even everything out. And then once I do that, we'll go in with the concealer and see what we think about that. But overall, my first impression on this is it really does make your skin look better, and it's very easy. When she said this was 60 seconds, it really is. It's not one of those that I felt was very streaky or hard to apply. It really was just pump out, rub into your skin, and you could be good to go. Now, is it going to look good under makeup? I'm not sure. I would probably use this more so just for those days when, again, I just want to look a little bit more polished, but I don't want to put a lot of effort in. Now, in terms of blurring, I'll have to watch my footage back and you guys can let me know down below. It definitely did soften my redness and just my pores around my nose, but I can still see, you know, my pores and texture. Typically anything that I apply that's liquid is going to enhance my texture. I really rely on powders to smooth it down. So we'll see how it goes once I apply this Beauty Blender tint and then I powder. But I'm gonna go ahead and apply this now, and then we'll move into trying the concealer. But overall, first impression on this is it really does exactly what she says it does. It just really kind of evens your skin out very quick and easy, no makeup. So I'd be interested just to pick up a deeper shade for myself because I feel like that's the only thing that's really throwing me off right now. All right, so the Beauty Blender Skin Tint went over this great. I can't really tell in terms of blurring until I use a powder, but I wanna move on to the actual concealer. I still feel like my face is lighter than my chest. I think it's just because that base layer was so light, but I think I'm gonna try out the shade Light Yellow in the concealer. They sent pretty light shades of the concealer as well, so this is probably the deepest one. So I'm gonna go ahead and apply pretty much how I typically would. Feels like a very thin formula. I just covered up half my wing. Good job, Babs. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and start blending this in. Coverage looks really nice. Let me try to zoom you in as much as possible. I literally covered up like my entire wing. I'm gonna have to fix that. So this is the concealer blended out. I'm gonna go ahead and do the other side. So it seems like it's one of those that dries a little bit fast. I wouldn't say like overly fast, but I wouldn't put on like an entire concealer and contour routine. Like if you can see right here, just having to work a little bit to blend that out. So I would not let this sit too long. So this is what the concealer looks like blended out before I use any powder. I wouldn't say that it's an overly hydrating formula. Lately I've been really loving like the ABH Magic Touch. It's not drying, it's just more of that whipped sort of texture, that thin whipped texture. Coverage looks about a medium. I don't want to overdo it. I see a little bit peeking through. I might just add like a tiny amount right there, but I don't want to overdo it. So that it gets heavy. So this is what the concealer is looking like before I set it with powder. I feel like it's a pretty thin formula. I would say a medium coverage. I don't want to add any more because it will really look heavy in my fine lines. I can still see a little bit of blueness peeking out, but honestly that's pretty standard. I really want to see how this works with powder. So I'm going to go in with my Huda Beauty Pound Cake, which is like my favorite smoothing powder. First I got to get any creasing out. Again, this is very normal for me to have creasing. So I'm just going to press this powder in and I'm going to just kind of push it into the skin all the way down the T-zone. Okay, it's looking a little bit dry right there. So this is half of my face set. This is just one of my favorite powders because it is quite smoothing. So I feel like my skin looks good. I'm noticing a little bit of dryness right under here, which is a problem I've had more recently. I've been trying out different eye creams and just trying to keep them hydrated. So I don't know, maybe if they're just not hydrated enough. It's not anything crazy, but it is something that I'm noticing. So let's see how this side sets. Okay, so comparing the two, I feel like this side doesn't look as dry, so it could just be I have dry under eyes. I'm gonna go in with my Dior Powder No Powder and my Beauty Blender Puff. I like to use this pretty much everywhere that's not my T-zone, especially with more luminous products, skin tints. This powder just works beautifully with dewier products. Okay, so here's a close-up of the concealer set. This side looks great. I feel like everything looks pretty normal. I mean, I do have fine lines, I'm human, but this side is looking a little bit just creasy and dry. Now, again, this could be my issue just because I feel like recently I've been liking more hydrating concealers because I do have dryness under my eyes. Maybe I didn't get all the creases out, but I'm noticing just kind of enhanced dryness on this under eye, but really not this one. I wouldn't say this concealer is extremely hydrating. I wouldn't say it's drying either, but for someone like me that has been struggling with drier under eyes, maybe it's not hydrating enough for me. So we'll have to see how, you know, this plays out. I'll have to keep using it. This is obviously just my first impression, but I think now I'm going to go off camera, finish the rest of my makeup, and then we'll see how everything blends on top, and I'll give you my first impression. All right, guys, so I finished my makeup off camera, and I have to say everything blended beautifully. I do feel like my skin looks really nice. I don't feel that it's heavy or greasy, and I do feel like it looks blurred. I typically use a blurring primer pretty much all the time, so I didn't do that today. I just used this, and I think my pores look pretty good. You guys can tell me down below. You guys know that I struggle with my pores. It's one of my biggest issues. Large pores around my nose area specifically is the biggest problem that I deal with in terms of texture. Of course, I do have other texture, but I'm really mostly insecure about the pores right here. Anything that's glowy typically makes them look worse. So like the skin tint from Beauty Blender. So I always like to use a powder to set it down, but I have to say that this could be a really nice blurring primer. I really kind of ruled it out and thought, it's just gonna be one of those for no makeup, which I actually enjoy it for that as well, but I do feel like my pores look really nice, and I did not use an additional pore smoothing primer. Out of the two products I tried today, this is the standout for me. I do feel like it is a multi-purpose product. While it doesn't have coverage, it does just smooth everything out, and it just makes your skin look more even. I know a lot of people, including myself, really don't like to leave the house with nothing on. I'm very insecure about it because of my redness. I really just feel a little bit embarrassed, and then people will be like, oh, your face is so red, and I'm like, thanks, Jan, I didn't know. So for me, this would be a great product for every day when I just want to run errands, walk the dog, and I really don't want to be insecure about my skin, but I don't want to mess with an entire foundation and all of that. I'm really excited to keep trying it because I am quite impressed with how my makeup went on top of it. I do feel like it definitely smoothed my skin out. It doesn't feel heavy or gunky around my pore area. I don't feel oily or dry. So I think this product is going to be great. I just need to get a different shade. Moving on to the concealer, I'm a little bit undecided. I do feel like my under eyes look nice and bright. This under eye looks pretty good. This one up close just looks really dry. Again, I have been struggling with dry under eyes, specifically because I started Differin months back, and I've noticed dry eyelids and under eyes. So for me, it just could be the fact that I need to hydrate my under eyes more. This is definitely not a hydrating concealer, so I'll keep testing this out with different foundations, eye creams, different powders, and I'll see what I think. But if I had to choose between the two products, I would say the concealer is okay. It's not blowing my mind, but I don't hate it. It's just one of those, it's kind of like, okay, let me keep trying it. But this is something that I'm intrigued to keep using because I do feel like it's a little bit more unique to my collection, something that I don't really have, but that I would like to use. Alright guys, so that is everything for my first impressions on the new Jaclyn Cosmetics Complexion collection. Obviously there was only 2 products, so I just wanted to play around with them and show you different ways to use them. I will continue to use these products in upcoming videos and off camera, but do let me know down below, are you interested in this collection? What did you think about the way everything applied? Are you not interested in this collection? Do let me know your thoughts down below. If you're new here, I hope you'll subscribe. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. I will link all the information down below in my description box. Thank you guys again so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.